In Australia, there are three main ways to buy your first property with almost no deposit. The first way is the first home buyer scheme, which allows you to buy with as little as a 5% deposit. The second way is the 2% deposit scheme, which is a new product that just has become available this year. The third way is a family guarantee loan, where you can buy with no deposit as long as you have a family member that can guarantee the loan. Waiting to save up for a 20% deposit can take years, and during that time, property prices can rise faster than you can save. These schemes let you get into the market sooner, allowing you to start building equity now and avoid being priced out in the future. So let's skip the introductions and dive into the details, and please use the timestamps below to skip to the relevant sections. First scheme is the first home buyer scheme. The first home government buyer scheme is the most well-known option out there, but it's still worth breaking down to make sure you understand how it all works. There are three main components of the scheme. The first component is the first home guarantee, the 5% deposit. The second component is the first home owner grant. And the third component is the stamp duty concession. So let's look into the first component, the first home guarantee. This scheme allows eligible first home buyers to buy a property with as little as a 5% deposit without needing to pay any lender's mortgage insurance or LMI, which is a fee charged by the bank when purchasing with less than 20% deposit. To apply for this scheme, you can do directly through the bank or through a broker like myself who can see if you're eligible and help you apply for this. Let's break this down with a real life example. Let's say you're purchasing a property worth $700,000 in New South Wales. Instead of needing the typical 10%, $70,000 or 20%, $140,000 deposit, you only need a 5% deposit or $35,000 plus purchase cost, which is usually around an extra $5,000 on top. So let's talk about the specific requirements that you need to get this scheme. The first requirement is the income cap. If you're a single person, you can't be making more than $125,000 per year based on the most recent tax assessment notice to get the scheme. Or if you're applying as a couple, the income cap is $200,000 per year combined. The second requirement is you must be a first-time buyer or someone who hasn't owned property in the last 10 years. Number 3, the property must be used as your primary residence. You must move in within 6 months and live there for usually around 6 to 12 months. Number 4, there are price caps on the house that you can buy, and these vary depending on the location. For example, New South Wales Metro is capped at $900,000. Queensland Metro is $750,000. Other states have different caps, so check the official website for details, which we will link below. Number 5, you must be an Australian citizen or permanent resident. Number 6, you must provide genuine savings for the last 3 to 6 months or rental ledger. Let's move on to the first home owner grant and stamp duty concessions. The first home owner grant, this is a cash grant paid to you by the government to help you with buying a property. This grant is applied for during the pre-approval stage and is paid to you on the settlement of your home. The grant amount depends on the state and the property must be new except for houses in the Northern Territory. For example, in New South Wales, you could receive $10,000 for buying or building a brand new home. Number 2, stamp duty concessions. Stamp duty is a tax imposed by the government when you buy a home. This is usually between 4 to 5% of the home. With this scheme, first home buyers can often receive full or partial exemption from stamp duty. For example, in New South Wales, no stamp duty is required for properties up to $800,000, and for properties between $800,000 to $1 million, you pay a reduced amount. The good news is that you can stack all three schemes together. For example, if you're a first home buyer looking to buy a new property for around $700,000 in New South Wales, you can use the 5% deposit scheme, so you only need $35,000 deposit and avoid paying LMI, which will save you around $20,000 to $30,000. Then you can use the $10,000 government grant if you're buying a brand new home, and also you don't pay any stamp duty, saving you approximately $20,000. So by stacking these schemes, you can potentially save between $40,000 to $50,000. To make the example crystal clear, I have included a cheat sheet in the description below that explains everything, so make sure you check that out and give us a like and subscribe if you're getting any value from the video so far. So let's move on to the 2% deposit scheme. This scheme is a lesser known scheme but offers a fantastic way to enter the property market with a minimum upfront cost. So how does it work? You only need a 2% deposit, excluding government costs. Please note, this scheme is completely different from the 2% single parent government guarantee scheme. Let's look at the eligibility. Number 1, must be Aussie citizen, permanent resident, or New Zealand citizen. Number 2, minimum household income of about 150. Number 3, credit score of 600 or more. Number 4, stable employment. Number 5, the houses that you buy are restricted to certain postcode areas, so usually metro areas. So let's break it down with a real life example. Let's say you're buying a property for 700,000 in New South Wales. A 2% deposit is only 14 grand plus the purchase cost of 5 grand, which includes registration, fees, transfer, pest reports and conveyancer costs. The total funds required is about 19 grand. That's huge compared to the 5% deposit where you need at least 35 grand, a 10% deposit where you need at least 70 grand, and a 20% deposit where you need $140,000. And you can see why this is a game changer, because the number one hurdle to getting into the property market is saving a deposit. So here are the pros and cons of the 2% scheme. The pros: you get into the market quicker with a smaller deposit. The second pro: you don't pay any LMI, which can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. You stop wasting money on rent and you buy a property which appreciates in value. For example, one of my clients used this scheme to buy a home for $800,000. 1 year later, this property is worth almost $900,000. So he made almost $100K, which was nearly impossible for them to save on their own. Now, what's the cons? Higher monthly repayments due to a smaller deposit. The other con is interest rates may be slightly higher, usually between 6.3% to 7.7%, depending on the lender and your financial profile. So it's important to check your numbers to see if the scheme is viable for you. And if you need help with this, you can always book a free call with me on the link below. And lastly, the family guarantee loan. A family guarantee loan lets a family member, typically your parents, use their property equity as security for your loan. This means you can potentially buy a property with zero deposit. So how does it work? Well, your loan is split into 2 parts. The first part, the primary loan, which covers 80% of the property value and is secured against your new home. The second component is the guarantee portion, which covers the remaining 20% plus purchase costs and is usually secured against the guarantor's property. This means you can borrow up to 100% or more of the purchase price. To make this crystal clear, here's an example. Let's say you're looking to buy $1 million property in New South Wales. The purchase price is $1 million, the stamp duty is roughly about 40 grand, let's say, and the miscellaneous cost is around 3 grand. So the total cost is about 1,043 grand. So your primary loan will be about 800,000 or 80%. The guarantor portion will be at 243,000, covering the deposit plus costs, which will be tied against the guarantor property. So you can potentially borrow the full amount, which means you don't need to have any deposit to contribute. The key requirements. The key requirements for this scheme is the guarantor must have sufficient equity in the property. Usually the bank will allow between 50 to 70% of the equity in the guarantor property to be used. Second, immediate family members such as parents are preferred by the lenders, but some exceptions for extended family can be applied. Number 3, servicing is based on your income, not the family member's income. So you can have parents that can be guarantors even though they don't earn any income. So here are the pros and cons of the scheme. The pros are avoid LMI, saving between $20,000 to $30,000, and also no deposit is required. The cons are high repayment since you're borrowing the full amount plus costs, and if you don't make multiple payments on the loan, the lender can seek to recover the guarantee portion from the guarantor's property. So please make sure you pay your bills on time or they'll be coming for your mum's house. I know this sounds scary, but there is an exit strategy to this that makes this worth doing. After a few years, when your property value increases and your loan balance reduces, you can refinance to remove the guarantors off your loan. And this typically happens when your loan to value ratio drops below 80%. More on this on another video. If you'd like to explore how any of these options could work for you, feel free to book a call with me using the link in the description below. I'd love to help you get started. So there you have it, 3 ways to help you buy your first property in Australia with almost no deposit. Getting into the market sooner can be a game changer, but what you buy is just as important as how you buy it. In my next video, I'll be diving into why purchasing an apartment might not be the best move for most buyers. So if you're considering your first property, this is a video you do not want to miss. See you there.